If disappointment had a wrapping paper, mine came in matte beige with a cartoon lady on the front wide-eyed, clutching a juice box and a sparkly wand while bills spiraled around her head. The title? Stop Being a Preschooler in an Adult Body. Merry freaking Christmas. Meanwhile, across the room, my younger brother Ben was unwrapping first-class tickets to Tokyo like he'd just discovered buried treasure. He shrieked like a contestant on a game show. My parents clapped. "We want you to expand your international contacts," my dad said, like Ben was some kind of corporate diplomat and not a lifestyle vlogger who once made a video ranking ramen cups. "And this book might help you do the same," my mom added, finally turning to me with a smile people use when they're trying to sell a vacuum cleaner you didn't ask for. I smiled back. "It's what I do when I'm trying not to cry, scream, or throw a decorative Santa across the room." Let me introduce myself before we go further. I'm Riley. I'm 31. I work full-time as a preschool teacher, part-time as a weekend kids party host, and full-time unpaid as my family's emotional support system. Ben, he's 27. Charming, loud, magnetic. My parents' golden ticket. Me, I'm the default babysitter, errand runner, moral support hotline, and apparently now the recipient of motivational insults wrapped as literature. Last year, Ben got a drone for his travel reels, and I got a coupon for 1 free hour of career coaching printed off from a sketchy website. This wasn't new. This was tradition. At dinner, I brought homemade mashed potatoes, glazed carrots, and a pie I stayed up until 2 a.m. making. Ben brought a bag of store-bought rolls and still got praised like he'd milked the cow himself. "Wow, Benjamin, these rolls are incredible. You always know how to pick the best ones," my mom gushed. "Rye, did you bring anything gluten-free?" she added without looking up. Later, while I was clearing dishes, my mom handed me a trash bag and said, "You've always been so grounded. That's what I love about you. You don't mind doing the less glamorous tasks." Less glamorous. Right. Because raising 25 sugar, rushed kids every weekday wasn't glamorous enough. That night, I lay in my twin bed in my tiny upstairs rental, above a nail salon that always smells like acrylic and ambition, and stared at the ceiling. My niece Zoe's giggle still echoed in my head. From earlier, she'd laughed so hard when I made her a glittery snowman puppet. And it hit me. They gave me a book about growing up because they didn't think I had. Not in the get your life together kind of way, more like the your life doesn't count kind of way. And maybe, just maybe, they were right. Not about me being immature, but about me needing to grow just in a direction they weren't expecting. So I sat at my desk, glitter still stuck to my sleeves, and wrote 3 messages. The first one was to Ben. I told him I wouldn't be available for weekend babysitting starting January. I loved Zoe. I really did. But I was tired of missing my own life to support someone else's. The second message was for my parents. I thanked them for the book. Genuinely, I told them it made me think, not about my immaturity, but about my boundaries. The third message I never sent. It was just for me. A list titled, "Things I Want That Aren't for Anyone Else." On that list were things like a morning without guilt, a Saturday with silence, and respect without performing for it. The next morning, I had 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and 1 group text from my mom that read, "Riley, this is extremely out of character. Please reconsider for the sake of the family." Out of character? Sure. And so was giving your adult daughter a passive-aggressive paperback as a holiday gift and expecting her to be thrilled about it. I ignored the calls. I went to work because at least there, when a child said, "You're the best teacher ever," they meant it. And that's when the shift started. Not a dramatic transformation. No haircuts or revenge plots or viral TikToks. Just quiet resolve. Little lines drawn in the sand. The kind of lines you don't notice until someone tries to cross them. Over the next few weeks, I didn't babysit. I didn't just swing by. I stopped sending money just this once to help Ben cover tuition or flights, and I didn't explain why. I let them sit with the silence. By week 3, my mom left a voicemail with that unmistakable tone, half guilt trip, half subtle threat. "We're worried about you, sweetheart. This coldness isn't like you." Coldness. That's what they called it. Funny. I called it boundaries. They never noticed the bruises that weren't on the skin, the way 100 small slights shape you like erosion, slowly, until you're nothing but soft edges and obligation. When I was 8, I said I wanted to be a magician. I practiced tricks for weeks. At the dinner table, I pulled a foam ball from behind Ben's ear. My dad laughed. Maybe try something a little more realistic, he said, shaking his head. Ben said he wanted to be a CEO. They bought him a blazer from the kids section at Macy's and took him to a corporate networking event. That was always the story. My dreams were charming, his were funded. But here's the plot twist. They didn't see coming. I stopped waiting for permission to grow up. I stopped begging for acknowledgement. I started choosing myself. And the more I did, the more their confusion turned into something else, panic. Because the moment the reliable one stops showing up is the moment everyone else has to look in the mirror and ask, now what? It didn't take long for the silence to start echoing. By the second week of January, my family thread went from cheery memes and vacation countdowns to passive-aggressive silence and emoji-only responses. You know, the kind thumbs up, sad face, the occasional. From my mom, like she was too emotionally exhausted to type real words. Meanwhile, I was thriving in the most boring ways possible. I cleaned out my coat closet. I started a journal. I bought groceries without calculating how much I'd have to send Ben for just one more textbook. And every morning, I woke up without that heavy knot in my chest that came from knowing someone needed something from me. It was glorious. Until the group chat flared back to life. Mom, quick question, are you free Saturday? Ben and Lila have a conference and really need someone to watch Zoe. It's just a few hours. Me, sorry, I've got plans. Ben, wait, what kind of plans? The nerve. Not thanks for the years of unpaid childcare. Not we understand if you're busy. No, just suspicion. Like my time couldn't possibly be full unless I was baking cookies for someone else's kid. Me, just not available. Hope it goes well. There was a pause, then silence. Then the classic guilt card. Mom, that's disappointing. Zoe adores you, she does, and I adore her. But I don't exist to pick up where Ben and Lila's parenting ends. That weekend, I went to a local art fair by myself. I tried lavender lemonade. I bought a tiny ceramic frog that made me laugh for no reason. I watched a street performer juggle flaming batons. I didn't post about it. I didn't text anyone. I just lived. The next Monday, I walked into my classroom with glitter in my hair and actual peace in my heart, until my phone buzzed 3 times in a row. Missed call Mom, missed call Ben, voicemail Ben. I didn't want to listen, but curiosity won. Hey, so, listen, the sitter we hired bailed last minute. Lila had already left for the event and I was stuck. I had to leave Zoe with her uncle, Gavin. He's not great with kids. Long story short, she ended up eating whipped cream straight from the can and learning how to say screw this. Lila's freaking out, and Mom's pissed. Just thought you should know. I sat there, holding a pipe cleaner dragon one of my students made, feeling absolutely nothing. Not shock, not guilt, just a dull, tired ache in my ribs where my patience used to be. That night, I got a message from Lila. Not thank you for all the times you saved our butts. Not we understand if you're busy. Nope. Just, Lila, you could have told us you weren't serious about family anymore. Like I'd suddenly become a stranger for daring to protect my time. A few hours later, another ping. Mom, this whole phase of yours, it's confusing, cold. It doesn't feel like the Riley we know. There it was again. Cold, their favorite word for boundaries. I almost replied, maybe you never really knew me. But I didn't. Instead, I turned off notifications, made myself tea, and sat on my tiny balcony listening to cars hum past. It was weirdly peaceful. Until Thursday. That's when it hit the next level. Zoe's daycare teacher suite, overworked Miss Helen pulled me aside at pickup and said, there was something odd today. Zoe told me her mommy's party was boring, but her fairy auntie's party was sparkly and way better. She even brought a glitter wand and asked to do show and tell. I laughed, couldn't help it. That wand had been part of the homemade birthday celebration I threw for her 2 weeks earlier, just me and Zoe, wearing paper crowns and singing off key in my living room. It wasn't Pinterest worthy, but it was real. Miss Helen smiled awkwardly. It's adorable, but, well, I also got a strange call. Someone asking if any of the kids had ever been taken off site by a staff member. They didn't give a name, just ask questions. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly who made that call. Later that day, my principal called me in. She wasn't mad, just confused. She'd gotten an anonymous inquiry that sounded a lot like someone trying to start trouble. I showed her the text thread. The one where Lila agreed to drop Zoe off for a simple birthday thing. Nothing too extra. I had screenshots, timestamps, even the receipt for the rental hall. She read them, then looked at me and said, "Someone's trying to make you look irresponsible." I nodded. Yeah. And I'm done playing along. That night, I wrote one last message. Calm, firm. No glitter, no jokes. Hi, Lila. I heard about the call to the daycare. I've attached our full message history for clarity in case you're unsure what you agreed to. I won't be tolerating any further insinuations or actions that could impact my job. I love Zoe deeply, but I will not be manipulated into silence for doing something kind with your permission. Riley, she didn't respond, but my mom did. This is family, Riley, not a courtroom. Right, because when they cross the line, it's love. But when I draw the line, it's betrayal. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The truth doesn't need backup dancers. And yet, it came anyway. A few days later, my Uncle Jack called. The only adult in my extended family who's ever treated me like more than background noise. He'd seen my mom's passive-aggressive Facebook post about relatives turning birthday parties into loyalty tests and decided to check in. "You're not wrong," he said. "They're just not used to you having a spine." I blinked. "Is that what this is?" "Yeah," he chuckled. "And it's making them uncomfortable. That's not your problem." After that, I started hearing whispers of support. A cousin I hadn't seen in years sent me a DM, saw the photos. Zoe looked so happy. That party looked magical. "You're an amazing aunt." A coworker who helped me set up that day texted, "Zoe talked about the fairy dragon for an hour. Pretty sure your hero." And slowly, something settled in me, something strong, something unshakable. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the cold one. I was just the first one to stop bending. The irony? They raised me to be kind, to be helpful, to always do the right thing. They just never thought I'd apply those lessons to myself. After the whole anonymous daycare inquiry, things got eerily quiet. Too quiet. No texts. No fake emergencies. No "can you just" favors wrapped in guilt. Just silence. It was the kind of calm that made your shoulders tense because you knew it wouldn't last. And sure enough, it didn't. The next ripple came not through words, but a picture. I was scrolling through social media during a slow afternoon snack break, half a peanut butter sandwich and lukewarm coffee when I saw it. Zoe, smiling in a bouncy castle. Face painted, cake taller than her, balloons in perfectly color-coordinated clusters. And Ben and Lila standing behind her in pastel outfits, like they were shooting a family magazine spread. The caption, "Some families are born, others show up." I wasn't tagged. Neither was anyone from my side of the family. I just stared at the screen, holding my sandwich mid-bite like it might explain itself. At first, I felt that old sting, the one that whispered, "You're not really one of them." But then I laughed, not bitterly, not sarcastically, just laughed. Because here's the thing, they were right. Some families do show up. And that day I decided to show up for Zoe, again, but on my terms. I booked a small community hall, pulled out my worn but beloved costume trunk, messaged a few parents from my preschool circle, called in favors from 2 of my old party gig friends. And the next Saturday I threw Zoe another birthday party. Not to compete, not to win, just to remind her of joy without conditions. There were paper crowns, story time with puppets, DIY glitter slime, and so many stickers. I think one might still be stuck to my elbow. Zoe wore her sparkly tutu from last time and spun in circles until she fell over giggling. At one point she hugged me and whispered, "Best birthday ever." I didn't cry, but I wanted to. Because that connection, that love, that light in her face wasn't something you could stage for a photo. That was real. And I got to be a part of it. For a moment, all was well. Then the voice note arrived. Zoe in the background of a video shouting, "Fairy party! No boring party. Fairy Auntie's party was better." And my laugh, clear as day, unfiltered, genuine. It was cute, completely innocent. But in our family, honesty like that had consequences. The fallout came fast. Lila, Zoe's confused. She thinks your party was the real one. This isn't helpful. Mom, she keeps asking for you. You're making this harder than it needs to be. And then it escalated. Apparently, Zoe had told her daycare teacher, loud and proud, that my mommy's party was boring, but the fairy one had dragons. Then she tried to hide glitter stickers in her cubby for next time. It would have been funny if it hadn't triggered a full-blown family meltdown. Ben texted me a screenshot from a parenting forum, asking if I'd been coaching Zoe to reject her parents. I almost choked on my tea. Seriously? I was tempted to respond with something sarcastic. Maybe, yes, I'm secretly leading a toddler uprising. But I didn't, because things were already spiraling. Then came the worst one. My dad left a voicemail. Look, Riley, we could have gone to the authorities, but we didn't. Just think about that. I sat there, holding my phone, jaw slack, while a kid nearby squirted applesauce across the table. Authorities? For what? Hosting a party they agreed to? That's when I made a new folder on my computer, labeled it, just in case. Inside, I added every text message, every agreement, screenshots of Lila's RSVP, the hall booking confirmation. I wasn't paranoid, I was prepared. And I was done playing nice with people who only respected me when I was quiet. So I sent one final message. Hi, Ben and Lila. Since there seems to be confusion about consent and responsibility, I've attached all documentation regarding the party you agreed to. If I hear of another false claim or inquiry impacting my job or reputation, I will seek legal action. I love Zoe. I'll always be kind. But I won't tolerate being manipulated or slandered. Riley, no response. But the next day, my mom texted, Family isn't a contract. Why are you acting like this is a courtroom? There it was again, trying to make me the problem. I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about coldness. It was about clarity. They were used to me being bendable, flexible, always the one who patched things up, smoothed things over, kept the family image intact. But I wasn't their image manager anymore. I was just me. Still wearing glitter, still telling stories, still hugging kids when they're scared, but no longer playing housekeeper in a house that forgot I was even there. Later that week, I got a text from Zoe's daycare teacher. Just FYI, Zoe tried to call you on a toy phone today. Said she was inviting you to her next party. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled at my screen so hard my cheeks hurt. Then I cried, not because I was sad, but because she saw me, really saw me, even if the adults didn't. That was enough. I didn't reach out to my family. Not when my parents posted a vague status about some people using children to divide families. Not when Lila updated her profile picture to a smiling family portrait with Zoe cropped just close enough to hide her glittery shoes. I didn't respond, because I didn't need to defend myself anymore. The people who mattered knew the truth, and the ones who didn't, they were never going to. But here's the wildest part. Support came from the edges, quietly, steadily. A coworker left a sticky note on my desk. Your niece is lucky to have you. Just saying. My old college friend DM'd me after seeing photos from the fairy party, saying, I'd pay you to throw my kid a birthday like that. And then came the message that floored me, from one of Lila's friends. Someone I barely knew. I know this is random, but I just want to say, I've heard how they've been talking about you. It's not okay. If you ever need someone to back you up, I'm here. It was tiny, but enormous. I wasn't the only one who saw the cracks. And maybe I wasn't alone anymore. By now, I'd stopped expecting apologies. Not because I didn't deserve one, but because I finally accepted they weren't coming. Not from people who thought setting boundaries was an act of war. Not from a family who mistook compliance for love. Still, silence has weight. And after the messages dried up and the posts turned vague and icy, there was only stillness. But even silence speaks. It shows you who values control more than connection, who only loved you when you were convenient. They didn't want me back. They wanted the version of me who said yes without thinking. And I buried her. Instead, I built something new. That same week, I got a message from a parent at Zoe's preschool. She'd seen pictures from the fairy party courtesy of another mom, whose kid also attended, and asked if I could host her daughter's birthday. Nothing big, she said. Just something like the joy I saw in those photos. I said yes, and something shifted. That one party turned into 3, then 5. By February, I had bookings through April. I printed business cards, just a simple design, pastel stars on cream. I named it Wonder Sprout Kids. Catchy, whimsical, mine. I also finally did something I'd been scared to try. I raised my weekend rate. Guess what? Nobody blinked. Not one parent asked, "Is this your real job?" Not one looked at my glitter-covered apron and said, "So what do you actually do?" They just smiled, paid me fairly, and handed me their kids with full trust. It was the kind of respect I never got from my own family. Until one afternoon in late March. I was mid-cleanup from a puppet workshop glue drying on my forearm, sequins in my socks when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. It was Lila. "Hey, I heard from someone that you've been throwing parties. Like for other people. I guess I didn't realize this was a business." Anyway, Zoe saw a video online and started crying. "She misses you. We all do. Maybe we could talk?" A softer approach, carefully worded. That tone people use when they realize guilt isn't working, so they try nostalgia instead. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I had a party to prep for. The theme was Galactic Explorers. I'd just finished building a cardboard rocket ship taller than most of my students. That night, I stayed up late gluing foil stars to paper helmets and thinking about how strange it felt to finally have space. Not physical space, emotional space. Room to breathe without always anticipating the next crisis or guilt trip. Room to laugh without wondering who'd twisted into selfishness. That weekend, after the party, I took myself out to lunch. Just me, my to-go container of pad thai, and the sunshine. No one called. No one interrupted. And for once, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. But it did anyway. Monday morning, another missed call. This time, from my dad. Voicemail again. "You've made your point. We get it, you're busy. But this wall you've put up, it's hurting everyone. Especially Zoe. Is that what you want?" That's what they always circled back to, Zoe. Like she was a pawn in a very tired game. I didn't answer. But I did write something down. "I will not let love be weaponized against me." I read it out loud. Once. Twice. It felt like shedding something heavy I didn't realize I'd been carrying. Still, the heat turned up again the next week. I was working late lesson plans for a unit on emotions. Ironically, when the school's admin forwarded me an email, anonymous sender, questioning whether I'd taken a child off campus without proper clearance. Again, it didn't mention names. But it didn't have to. They were still trying to make me the villain. Still trying to rattle my foundation with vague accusations, dressed up as concern. My principal, thankfully, had my back. "Clearly personal," she said, scrolling through the email. "Do you want to file something formal?" I shook my head. "Not yet, but I do want it noted." And then, I did something I hadn't done since this all began. I called my lawyer friend from college. Not for a lawsuit, not for drama, just to ask, how do you protect yourself when your own family's trying to take you down? She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "With receipts. And boundaries, so solid, they stop looking like walls and start looking like fences." I wrote that one down too. That night, I updated my folder, renamed it in case they try again. I added consent texts from both birthday parties, screenshots of social media posts they tried to erase. The anonymous emails, my job statement of support. I didn't do this because I wanted a fight. I did it because I refused to be afraid. Because the truth is, fear was the foundation of so many of my yes answers before. Fear of being left out. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of losing the people I loved. But here's the thing no one told me. Loving people doesn't mean letting them wreck you. And choosing peace doesn't mean choosing isolation. That weekend, I had dinner with friends, people who knew me before all this. We laughed until someone snorted soda. We played a ridiculous card game. Nobody asked me for favors. Nobody judged the glitter on my jeans. At one point, one of them said, "You're different lately." Like settled. I smiled. I think I'm finally living my own life. The table went quiet, in a good way. And that's when I knew. They saw me. Not as the helper, not as the backup plan, just as me. Later that night, I got a text from Lila. No accusations, no drama, just Zoe still talks about the fairy party. She wants to see you. I stared at it for a long time, because I missed her too. I missed her little jokes, her tiny hands covered in stickers, her serious face when she planned mischief. But I'd also learned something vital. Missing someone doesn't mean erasing the harm. So I replied simply, I'd love to see her, but not if I have to pretend nothing happened. Lila didn't respond right away, but a few days later she sent a short video, Zoe spinning in the sparkly tutu. I gave her, shouting, "Look at me. Magic." Then she waved at the camera and said, "I love my fairy auntie, that's all." And honestly, that was enough. After that video of Zoe twirling in her tutu, I felt something soften in my chest. Just a little. Not enough to forgive, not yet. But enough to breathe without bracing. I didn't reply right away. I wanted to hold on to that peace a little longer. Let it settle. But peace, like glitter, never stays still for long. Especially when some people are allergic to not being in charge of the narrative. The very next morning, my cousin sent me a screenshot. A post from my parents' shared Facebook page. It was long, dramatic, and worded with the kind of careful vagueness that makes you look twice. It's painful when family becomes distant. When people you raised with love start treating you like strangers. We miss how things used to be. Children are not weapons. They are bridges, not battlegrounds. No names, no context. But every relative in our family group knew who it was about. The likes rolled in, the sad face emojis. The comments, "So sorry you're going through this. Some people forget where they came from." Family is everything. I didn't reply, didn't call. I'd learned by now that reacting would only fuel their version of the story. Let them build their paper kingdom. I was done setting myself on fire just to keep it warm. Still, the pain lingered. Not because I missed being part of the show, but because it used to mean something. Or I thought it did. There was one comment that stuck out. From an old neighbor, someone I barely remembered. She always seemed like the sweet one. Sad to see her lose her way. I read that 3 times. Sweet one. Lose her way. As if kindness and boundaries couldn't exist in the same person. That night, I sat on my bed, Zoe's thank you drawing still taped to the wall beside me, and whispered to no one in particular, I didn't lose my way. I just stopped walking theirs. And that made all the difference. The days after were quiet again, the kind of quiet that's almost suspicious. I stayed busy party bookings, lesson planning, cleaning the dried glitter off my keyboard again. I was fine, until the email. It came from a local parenting group, one I occasionally contributed to with early learning tips and sensory play ideas. It said someone had raised a concern, not specific but serious enough. Something about a pattern of behavior and inappropriate boundaries with children outside of work hours. They didn't name me, but the wording was sharp, too sharp to be random. I read it 5 times before I realized I wasn't breathing. I wasn't scared. I was furious. Because I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't enough for them to guilt trip me. Wasn't enough to label me cold. Now, they wanted to erase me, not just from their lives, but from the spaces where I was thriving, where I was finally being seen and valued. I didn't cry. I drafted a response. I attached references, screenshots, event flyers, parent reviews from the parties I'd thrown, a copy of the text where Lila thanked me for being such a light in Zoe's life. I didn't beg. I didn't defend. I presented facts. Then I clicked send. And then I started shaking. Because it's one thing to step back from your family. It's another thing entirely when they try to follow you into the world you built and start tearing it down from the inside. Later that night, I got a message from Zoe's preschool director. Heard what happened. Just wanted you to know we stand by you. You've done nothing wrong. We've seen the way you are with the kids, how they light up around you. Whatever this is, we've got your back. I stared at that message like it was a lighthouse. Because for so long, my worth had been tied to people who only saw me when I was useful. But these people, they saw the full picture. The magic and the mess. And they stayed. The next day, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. But I knew that handwriting. My mother's. Inside was a typed letter, 2 pages, neatly formatted, like a resignation from empathy. We're deeply hurt by your actions. You've distanced yourself in ways we never thought possible. We miss Zoe, and it's unfair that you're putting her in the middle of this. She's just a child. She doesn't understand why her family feels so broken. I folded the letter slowly, read it again, and then again. Not once did it mention what they did. Not once did it acknowledge the party, the accusations, the daycare call, the fake concern emails. Not once did it say sorry, only what I had done. That was the pattern, wasn't it? They made a mess. I cleaned it. They crossed the line. I was told to forgive. They hurt me. I was called dramatic for saying it out loud. This time, I wasn't cleaning anything. Instead, I wrote a reply. Short, clear, final. You don't miss me. You miss the version of me who didn't speak up, who kept smiling while she was being used. I love Zoe. Always will. But I won't be part of a system that calls my silence love and my boundaries betrayal. If there's ever room for honesty, you know where to find me. I didn't send it. Not yet. I tucked it away. Saved it. Not as a threat, not as closure, but as a reminder that I was no longer playing a role in someone else's script. A few days later, I hosted another party. This one was pirate-themed. Foam swords, treasure hunts. A kid named Milo who insisted he was Captain Macaroni and made every adult refer to him as such. We laughed until our sides hurt. After the cleanup, one of the parents pulled me aside. "HEYI, don't know what your backstory is," she said, handing me a cup of water. "But my daughter talks about you like you're made of stardust. You're doing something right." I smiled, because she didn't need to know the whole story. She saw the part that mattered. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. It's been 3 years. 3 years since I got that book with the cartoon woman and the glitter wand. 3 years since I stopped giving weekends away like they were scraps. 3 years since I said no and meant it. Zoe's 5 now. She talks a mile a minute, believes she's part unicorn, and still thinks glitter is currency. When she visits, which is more often now, she brings drawings of dragons and stories about her imaginary kingdom. She calls me her fairy auntie of the north, and I let her. Because even if the world didn't always see my magic, she did. Her parents Ben and Lila don't love the new dynamic, but they've stopped fighting it. Maybe because Zoe started asking questions they couldn't answer without turning into villains. Maybe because I stopped reacting to their silence. Or maybe because they're tired too. Ben did eventually finish his degree. Without my help, which he once said was impossible. Turns out it wasn't. He had to take out loans, skip a few trips, decline unpaid internships. But he got through it. Lila works now, a small job, nothing shiny, but hers. Something that doesn't rely on invisible help in the background. They adjusted. The world didn't fall apart when I stepped back. It just shifted. As for me, I run my own business now, Wondersprout Kids. It started with birthday parties, but it's grown into something real. Creative workshops, school events, even early childhood conferences. I've got a 2-month wait list and a part-time assistant named Bri, who's better at balloon animals than I ever was. I still wear glitter, still tell stories, still crawl on floors and build castles out of cardboard and dreams. But now, nobody calls it childish. They call it booked. They call it brilliant. And they pay me for it. Sometimes I still get texts from my parents. Short, awkward messages like, "Zoe mentioned you taught her how to make slime. Very inventive." We miss how close the family used to be. They never say sorry, never acknowledge the silent war they waged to keep me small. I stopped waiting for that too. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you realize you don't need someone else's version of closure. The last time I saw my mom in person was at a school fundraiser Zoe's class hosted. She was there with Ben and Lila, holding a clipboard like it was a microphone. I was manning the glitter booth. At one point, Zoe ran over, hugged my legs, and shouted, "That's my fairy auntie!" loud enough to turn heads. My mom looked over, smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Afterwards, she approached me. "Zoe really loves you," she said, adjusting her scarf like it was armor. I nodded. "I really love her too." There was a pause, one of those loaded silences where every unspoken thing dances between you. Then she said, "It's good that you've found your place." And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to prove anything. I just smiled and said, I didn't find it. I built it. She blinked, then nodded, like maybe she understood or wanted to pretend she did. Either way, I didn't need her approval. That was the final lesson. I'd spent so long trying to earn respect from people who didn't know how to give it, when all along, what I needed wasn't their validation. It was my own permission. To live as I am, to grow without shrinking first, to protect my time like it mattered because it does. The biggest shift? I no longer feel guilty for being happy, or successful, or unavailable. I no longer think no needs to be followed by a long explanation. Sometimes no is sacred. Sometimes no is the beginning of something better. I didn't burn the bridges behind me, but I stopped waiting at them, hoping someone would meet me halfway. I built a path of my own instead, steady, sparkling, honest. And every step forward feels like coming home to myself. So, if you're reading this wondering if it's too late to draw your own lines, to reclaim your peace, to stop being the default caregiver for people who call your love obligation when it stops serving them, I'll say this: you're not cold. You're not selfish. You're not wrong. You're just learning how to stand where you were always meant to. And if you feel alone right now, remember, sometimes the first person who says no feels like the villain, until others realize they were never free to say no at all. So here's to the quiet rebels, the glitter-covered adults, the helpers who finally help themselves. You're not breaking the family. You're just ending the cycle. Story 2. To pay for my sister's graduate school, they embezzled my college funds, said that I wasn't an academic in any case. I refrained from arguing. I simply waited. I then gave this to them. Before she had finished reading it, my sister began to scream. The first sign was the flag. This would not be your typical party. It covered the whole wall of the living room. Emily, congrats. You will, as if it were a wedding rather than a graduation celebration, transform the world with glittering gold lettering, balloons, flowers, and printed programs. My mother gave me a half nod as I stepped in. She then advised me right away to remain close to the back so the photographer could obtain clear pictures of the family. In other words, you are not a part of the performance. Don't make a mistake. In the center of it all stood my sister Emily, grinning as if she were the honored guest at her own coronation. People were praising her and telling her how wonderful she was, inquiring about her intentions for the future. As usual, they only brought out the champagne for rare occasions, so I simply stood there acting like I was drinking it. This must have counted. This isn't really what you're dressed for. When she finally looked at me, my mother said, "Thank you for coming, however." I grinned. I wouldn't miss it, since I wouldn't truly. I was planning. Even though Emily and I are just a few years apart, it feels like we were raised in different homes. She received tuition, birthday parties with leased ponies, and piano lessons. Whatever was left over, I took. Hand-me-downs usually. Sometimes you just need to be thankful that you have a place to live. Talk. At the time, she desired to attend college. Our parents got her a new laptop and threw her a party. I inquired about college and was informed. You've never really been the academic kind, let's face it, honey. And that was all. No funds, no assistance, not even a brochure for a community college. Simply the hope that I would find employment and remain out of the way. So I did. I worked for years, paid the rent. When they asked, I helped, and saw them show Emily all of their love, money, and care, as if she were their only child. However, I didn't say anything. I nodded when they said things like, "Emily has always been driven," and I smiled when I had to. You've always been quite self-sufficient. Right now it's just simpler to support her objectives. Yes. Who finds it easier? I was treated like background noise during the gathering, asked to assist with setup, shift seats, and bring beverages, as usual. I take it you don't mind? My mother handed me a tray and asked if Emily wasn't so busy introducing herself, she would assist. She spoke as if Emily were a candidate for public office. I followed their instructions. I kept a smile on my face and waited for my time. I went to the party with someone. A man in his 40s, tidy suit, keep quiet, courteous. I responded that he was simply a buddy when folks questioned who he was. That was the only question posed. Why would they? I wasn't the protagonist. The side mission was me. After dessert, the speeches began. After tapping his glass, my dad got up. He thanked everyone for coming to celebrate our amazing daughter. Emily has put forth a lot of effort. We are extremely happy to have helped her through school and graduate school, and she has conquered every challenge. Everyone gave a clap. Emily gave me a teary-eyed grin, and I got to my feet. I just have a little thing to say. I spoke so loudly that the room fell silent. People looked in my direction. My parents appeared anxious. Emily simply had a frustrated expression. "For you, I brought something," I replied as I approached them holding a white envelope. "Not much. Only a little paperwork. I figured you would want to look at it." I gave it to my father. Grinning as if it were a joke, he opened it, then stopped grinning. My mother's expression quickly shifted as she leaned forward. Her jaw was clenched, and her eyes darted over the page, as if she were praying the words would fall into place. Emily chuckled. "What is it?" "A poetry that is passive-aggressive." She grabbed and skimmed the second page. She yelled before she had even finished reading it. "What on earth is this?" And because of the yelling, I'll stop there. And it was only the start. I questioned my mother why there were no images of me as a baby in the house when I was 6 years old. She informed me that a flood destroyed the box containing all of my early pictures. I didn't ask any questions. I was 6 years old. My only concern was if I could have Pop-Tarts for supper. Even yet, there was a strange feeling about it, particularly considering that hundreds of pictures of my sister Emily were dated, labeled, and organized. Even a scrapbook called Emily's Magical First Year was in one. Oddly, none of my miraculous scrapbooks made it through the water. However, I ignored it. That's what I used to do. Give things up, allow them to express their desires, and then accept them in a way, because there's never anything nice that comes from asking questions, and because I secretly didn't want the response. I had a good childhood. You know, having your own parents call you the quiet one who stays to himself, as if you were a stranger renting the spare room, being grounded for something your sister did, and missing out on all the big family gatherings are all part of being okay. Everything went to Emily, but it's not simply stuff. Yes, she received everything. She received encouragement, support, and attention. She had an entire staged upbringing in which she was the center of attention, and I was out of shot in the corner, most likely carrying her coat. She was the kind of child who once received recognition for her volunteer work at an animal shelter. When I didn't rake the leaves quickly enough, I was the kind that gets grounded. I initially believed it may be me. Perhaps I wasn't that intelligent. I might not have been good enough. Perhaps I was simply the unfortunate sibling who was positioned next to a naturally gifted overachiever and ended up falling short. But before it becomes poisonous, you can only take it for so long. Particularly when you discover that the regulations vary according on whose name appears at the top of the banner. I inquired about applying to colleges when I was 17 years old. Not everyone is cut out for college. My dad told a terrified toddler that the clown isn't real. My mother smiled tightly in response. "You've always had a more active role. We assumed you would want to get to work immediately." And that was all. No tours, no applications, no assistance. Our parents were treating Emily like the first woman to set foot on Mars when she was being flown out for university interviews. But once more, I ignored it. Have a job, bills were paid, lived frugally. When they labeled me so responsible, I laughed, as if it were more than just survival. Then, the moment that turned everything upside down arrived. Mail was the first thing. Isn't it boring? I did see one envelope, though. My name was on the return address, but it wasn't addressed to me. Odd. I opened it then. Yes, I am aware of it, not mine, technically. However, I believe it becomes your business when someone uses your name in correspondence. A paper that made my stomach turn was within. I will not disclose what it was. Not quite yet. To put it mildly, I was never supposed to see it. This time, I didn't swallow the many questions it brought up. I began to dig cautiously, silently. I called in favors, went to some offices, asked for some old documents, and acted as though I was working on a personal finance project. No one follows up when you mention financial literacy, and it became uglier the deeper I went. It turned out that I had never been told certain details about my life. Large things. Some childhood memories felt like tiny landmines because of certain things I had been inadvertently stepping over. I discovered records, transactions, signatures, and names I hadn't heard in a long time. The missing baby pictures suddenly made a lot more sense. So did my parents' constant behavior, as though allowing me to live under their roof was a favor. Emily's gaze on me did the same, as if I were background noise, and she was the heir to something. As it happens, I wasn't insane. The unfairness, the partiality, and the fact that I was constantly excluded from a family were not things I had imagined. I believed I was involved. I made a covert hiring decision for a reason. A specialist. We'll simply call him David. David carried a leather briefcase, wore wrinkle-proof suits, and spoke as if he were typing every word straight into a legal document. I kept him a secret from everyone. I informed Emily that I was still figuring things out and that I was working extra shifts. David and I met once a week in the interim, went over everything, created a file that is sufficiently thick to thud gratifyingly when dropped on a desk. I once asked him if what I had was sufficient. He remained motionless. He said, "It's not just enough. It's disastrous." From that point on, I waited for the ideal stage, the ideal moment, and the ideal time. And then the invitation came. Emily's grad party a night to remember. Oh, it would be. Not for the reason they expected, but definitely unforgettable. You'd think I'd feel bitter or angry or hurt. And yeah, I did for a long time, but at a certain point it stopped feeling like pain and started feeling like clarity. This wasn't just about money, it was about the way they talked about me. Like I was a disappointment when I was the one who held everything together. It was about how they said I wasn't the academic type while using every resource they had to lift someone else up and not even bothering to look back at me. It was about how they always made me feel lucky to get scraps while they stole the whole meal. So no, I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to throw a tantrum in front of the cake table. I was just going to hand them the truth in a nice clean envelope in front of everyone and let them ruin the party themselves. Emily screamed, cut through the room like a fire alarm. She was holding the second page now, reading faster like she was hoping she'd misunderstood the first one. Spoiler, she hadn't. My dad stood frozen with the envelope still in his hand. My mom leaned over, trying to read it too, but I could tell by the way her face drained that she'd already seen enough. The room had gone silent. Champagne glasses half raised, forks in midair. One of the neighbors was still chewing a bacon-wrapped date, clearly regretting not swallowing sooner. "Is this some kind of joke?" Emily said, her voice rising. "Where did you even get this mail?" I said. Weird thing about paperwork. It just shows up when people forget to hide it properly. She looked at my mom. "You told me everything was fine." My mom didn't answer. She just stared at the page like she was willing it to catch fire. My dad finally spoke. "We need to talk about this privately." "No," I responded coolly. "See, we've done private for years. This time we're doing it with witnesses." I looked around the room. "You all remember how they used to say I wasn't the academic type? Turns out I was just too expensive to educate. After they blew through the money, that was never theirs to begin with." And there it was. The moment the truth started leaking through the cracks. Let's rewind a little. The money they used to send Emily to school, that wasn't just any college fund. It was mine handed to me by individuals I never got the chance to know. My real parents. See, I wasn't simply adopted. I was absorbed, dragged into this household like a side character. They forgot to provide a background for when I was a newborn. My biological parents perished in a vehicle collision. My aunt and uncle, now known as Mom and Dad, took me in. They were assigned my legal guardians, which came with some duty. One among their obligations was handling a very significant bequest. The terms were explicit. The money was to be utilized for me to create a wonderful life, education, and stability. But obviously, in their thoughts, for me translated to for Emily, since that's precisely where it all went. They drained my fortune steadily, like somebody siphoning gas out of someone else's automobile. First, there was private school tuition for Emily, then her college, then the surprise automobile for her 16th birthday that evidently qualified as a transportation expenditure. Meanwhile, I was getting lectures about financial responsibility since I requested for a second-hand laptop to seek for employment. The most disrespectful part? They pretended to be making sacrifices for her. Every time someone inquired about how they managed to pay for everything, A lot of budgeting was required, or we simply take care of our daughter as best we can. She wasn't their only daughter, though. Not at all. And they never once brought up the fact that they were depriving their other child of their sight, which is why she had everything. At the gathering, Emily was still turning the pages. Her hands trembled. "This is unfair," she remarked. "You cannot simply arrive and sabotage my celebration in this manner. You're simply resentful." "Yes," I replied. "Let's accept that. I'm resentful." My name appears on each and every one of those accounts for that reason. For this reason, the attorney I brought along spent 3 months confirming each transaction. That's why money that was intended just for me was utilized to pay for the property where you currently reside. We both knew she believed it, but she looked at me as if she didn't. She had been aware for years that there were joint applications and transfer approvals with her signature. She gained more than that. She contributed to its concealment. At last, my mother spoke. She spoke in a tight, phony, calm voice. "Our goal was to act in the family's best interests, correct?" I remarked. "And I'm sure you just forgot that the trust wasn't family property. I owned it. We didn't anticipate that you would comprehend." She lost her temper. "Despite your youth, you didn't appear to desire to attend college." It nearly made me chuckle. Yes, I really adored working extra shifts while seeing Emily go off for academic conferences in places I couldn't afford to pronounce. My father attempted to assume command. "This is still a personal issue. We are the only ones involved." "Nope," I answered. "When you told everyone that I was idle for 18 years while living off of money that was intended for me, it ceased to be private. What's the worst?" They continued to believe that they could just talk their way out of it. My father began to pace while muttering about miscommunications. My mother saw my lawyer as if he were a party animal. Emily had a complete breakdown. She gripped her phone as though she were going to contact the president and said, "I'm not giving up my flat. This is not possible. You may wish to review the documentation." "Calmly," my lawyer said. "A sum that legally belonged to your brother was used to buy the flat entirely. For the past 2 years, you have been residing on stolen property." There was a gasp in the rear. It was probably Grandma. I looked out into the throng. "My money has been spent by them since I was a newborn, told me I wasn't worthy, and that I wasn't good enough, all the while making do with what I inherited from my real parents." Nobody spoke. I then went on to describe what follows. "The lawsuit has already been submitted. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict: I would get back all I had purchased with my inheritance. The flat, the home, the finances. Additionally, they would owe me more than they could pay because inflation had taken its toll and the value had decreased over time. I was given authority over the assets by the court. My childhood home is now mine." Emily's apartment was moved. Additionally, the outstanding debt was not able to be paid in full. For years, the remainder would be deducted from their pay. My father is close to retiring. I wish you luck. Mom, the same boat. Emily. It turns out she got a good job with that expensive degree she bought with my money. Until she becomes 40, she will repay me on a monthly basis. In front of everyone, she broke down in tears. "None of this was requested of me," she shouted. "You simply took it anyhow," I said. "The finest aspect?" I didn't even speak louder. I didn't yell, hurl objects, or leave in a rage. As they saw all they had constructed fall apart around them, I stood there, composed. Since everything they constructed was originally mine, I returned home when the party broke up sometime between my sister's yelling and my mother's order for everyone to leave. Right now, the scent of them was still present. The phony lemon air, freshener, and candles from the hallway diffuser are still there. I had never quite made the cut in that same wall of family pictures. The majority of those pictures were in a trash bag on the porch by the end of the week. I didn't want the past to be forgotten. I simply didn't want to continue acting as though it looked the way they had described. The court case proceeded quickly. That usually occurs when the defendants cannot afford the type of attorney that charges $900 an hour to simply breathe in your direction, and the evidence is unquestionable. The trust, transactions, property documents, unauthorized withdrawals, and falsified signatures were all examined by the court. Every single lie, and all the big ones. And the decision was just as David, the attorney I brought to the celebration, had predicted, they owed me everything. I didn't request that they be destroyed. I prayed for wholeness. The judge concurred. All assets bought for with my trust, which, regrettably for them, was almost everything, had to be turned over. Their home, my condo, and now Emily's. They confiscated and diverted every last dime that had been in investment or savings accounts. The issue with taking money from someone's inheritance and giving it to your favorite child, however, is this. You can't repay it for almost 20 years. Not quite. Thus, a repayment schedule was created by the court. The remaining amount would be deducted each month from their future earnings. My father attempted to argue. His retirement was imminent. The judge was unconcerned. I can't afford to live without my salary, Emily sobbed. The court instructed her to begin creating a budget. They all made an appeal. Naturally, it was said to be unjust, punishing, and emotionally harmful. Yes, I'm not joking. The appeal was rejected. Not all of the consequences was legal. It was also social. Everyone who attended that party spoke. People who used to call my parents and always smiled graciously stopped doing so. Friends and family began to distance themselves. No more invitations to breakfast. No more subtly complimenting Emily's motivation. Even my grandmother, who previously advised me to express greater gratitude, she called to apologize, that she was unaware of. I said very little, mostly because I didn't give a damn. I wasn't trying to win them over. I didn't want sympathy. Being the unfortunate underdog was not what I wanted. It was too late for everyone to come together. All I desired was what belonged to me. And perhaps some quiet. Following the decision, Emily remained in her flat for 3 months. I then sent out the official notice of eviction. She phoned me crying, claimed that I was punishing her for something she didn't accomplish on her own, and that she had nowhere else to go. You're correct, I informed her. It wasn't just you. You just cashed the checks, signed the paperwork, and remained silent for 18 years. She ended the call. I've heard that she temporarily moved in with a coworker. I don't know where she is right now. It's not my issue. My folks, on the other hand, moved into a rental in a less desirable area of town. My dad attempted to get a part-time job, but nobody is particularly interested in a 60-year-old guy who rants about treachery in his family during interviews. My mother began making and selling personalized cookies on the internet. To be honest, they're not awful. Unbeknownst to me, one of my coworkers purchased a bunch and brought them into the workplace. I kept their origins a secret from her. Let's just say that knowing that you're getting something back with each bite makes them taste better. A couple years have passed since then. I've rebuilt. I completed my education on my own terms, purchased with funds that were rightfully mine from the beginning. I launched my own company. It's mine, but it's little. I get no calls. Only the silent one now. It's quieter in the home now. No lectures about being ungrateful, no yelling, and no contrived family photographs. Just myself and the area I took back. I converted the overflow storage closet in my previous bedroom into an office. When I was 12, Emily forced me to sleep in the laundry room. I opened the floor plan and knocked it down. It's not worth keeping certain ghosts around. The monthly payments continue to be made. Like little monthly reminders that lives have a price, they are steady despite their small size, including those attributed to those who say they did it for the family. Indeed, there are moments when I question whether it was excessive to bring legal documents and a lawyer dressed in a fitted suit to the celebration. If only I could have handled it more tactfully, quietly, and maturely. However, I then recall all the birthdays I was overlooked, all the late evenings working double hours while Emily was away in France doing yoga electives, all the job applications I couldn't afford to submit. I recall being told that I was simply inconvenient and not intelligent, ambitious, or deserving of assistance. I don't regret it then. They weren't destroyed by me. I simply said the truth. And when the truth has been suppressed for too long, it always comes out. It occasionally bursts. I continue to receive brief emails. I hope all is okay with you. Can we have a conversation? This isn't how you have to be. Since I'm not being sincere, I don't respond. For the first time, I'm living my life without requesting their approval. In any case, that's how I recovered everything. The truth, the house, and the money. But occasionally, I still ask myself, have I gone too far? Or was it my sole chance of ever being heard? How would you have responded? Get more articles like this by subscribing. Story 3. My mom gave me a onesie that read "Surprise baby of a disappointment" during my baby shower. I chuckled when he said that it was a joke, so I did this. After 3 months, there came a loud knock on the door. Yes, I did realize then that my child's first article of clothes was also my family's last testament to my presence. Let me back up though. A nice, low-key baby shower was the plan. Cupcakes baked at home. A few decorations from Pinterest. At 2 in the morning, my husband continued to tape to the wall. Some friends, some family. The typical things people do when they're anticipating a kid, you know. The only person in the room who appeared even somewhat pleased for me was my husband, Adam. All the others? They came to perform, after all. My mother wore pearls. Rita, my sister, looked like she was walking the Met Gala carpet in a floor-length dress. And each time someone inquired about my well-being, she somehow responded by discussing her impending promotion. Traditional? Rita? In any case, I had nearly survived the afternoon without encountering any emotional obstacles. The presents then arrived, a little giraffe with its tag still on it, some pacifiers, and a couple baby blankets. Aunt Laura, nice touch. A glittering grandma to be sticker was then placed on the front of the present bag my parents gave me. I should have known too. I ought to have known. There was a onesie inside, white cotton, inscribed in large black characters and ranging from 0 to 3 months. A disappointment, baby of a surprise. For a moment, the room was completely quiet. Then, when her mother publicly makes fun of her life decisions, I did what any emotionally stable eldest daughter would do. I let out a loud, hearty laugh, as if it were the most hilarious thing I had ever seen. God, that's funny, Mom. I held it out for everyone to see while I spoke. My mom smiled as if she had just won an Oscar. And you still have that edgy sense of humor. Well, you were a surprise, Rita responded with a little smirk. And my uncle, I believe, grumbled and laughed. The type of chuckle that gets stuck in your throat and turns sour on the way down. His apple doesn't fall far. My jaw ached from smiling so much. I put the onesie down after that. I entered the kitchen. I cleaned my hands. I decided after staring at the sink, people who cheered when I laughed at being insulted, who would definitely turn around and tell my child one day, and who found this type of behavior humorous, were not people I wanted to raise my child around. Your mother was never meant to be born, aren't you? Not at all. I didn't say any of it, though. Not quite yet. Because that night, something else happened. Something that caught me off guard. I became aware of the extent of the rot at that point. He was only the punchline for them. I had always been the target of the real joke, which had been going on for 30 years. When I was insulted in front of friends and family, I did what any emotionally stable pregnant woman would do after taking a shower. When I got home, I sat on my wardrobe floor and sobbed until I felt like I had a migraine. Adam made an effort to console me. He did. But when your wife starts crying, what do you say? Will they treat our child the same way I was treated? He had nothing to say. And that was the issue. I had the answer already. See, this was not an isolated incident. It wasn't as though my mother had suddenly become a cruel person whose sense of humor was influenced by remarks made on TikTok. But since birth, this had been developing. Specifically, my birth, which seemed to be a huge hassle. The oops baby was me. A hospital blanket wrapped around the midlife crisis. Rita was born when my parents were in their 20s. Planned. Excellent. The child with the golden hue. Then, like an unpaid bill, I arrived without invitation. They also made sure I never forgot it. It was always as a child. You're lucky we kept you. Honestly, you ruined our empty nest plans. We didn't get to travel because of you. They'd say it with that casual cruelty. Like they were telling me what was for dinner. Rita, of course, never heard this. He was the one they chose, which made me. What? An accident. A consequence. A monthly supervision. I used to persuade myself they loved me differently. That it wasn't worse, just less photogenic. But that deception was harder to hold up every time they forgot my birthday. Or skipped my high school graduation. Because Rita's ballet performance was on the same day and she worked so hard. Christine at our family, being the older sister didn't mean you were wiser, meant You were better. When I got my admission letter to a state institution, my mom congratulated me by saying, Rita got into Yale, but this is still excellent for you. I worked through college. Rita didn't. I wore bargain rack outfits to job interviews. Rita's closet looked like a Banana Republic showroom. And when I got engaged to Adam, my dad genuinely remarked, "Are you sure you don't want to wait for someone with a little more ambition?" Yeah, it was the family. Brutally truthful. It means emotionally reckless with zero accountability in a pleasant way. God bless Adam, he did his best. "You're not them," he insisted again. "You are not need to be them." And in theory, I thought so. However, every time I paid full price for something, I would hear my mother's words in my mind. Whenever I refused to assist with another debt, I heard her remark, "Chrisette, stop being selfish." Each time I made a self-centered decision. It was more than words. I felt like I owed them something just for being born because of them. Even when I began to accomplish well for myself, they managed to make me feel bad when I got promoted, when Adam and I finally paid off our vehicle, and when we bought a little house. "You ought to assist your sister. She is working on critical projects." My dad continued, "My mom would say Rita is doing international consulting. She also needs to take care of the baby." It's funny, since I was the one who provided free weekend babysitting for that child. Rita was networking. When my dad's hours were reduced, I even donated money to help with my parents' mortgage. Thank you, but no thank you very much. 2 weeks later, they sent a follow-up text requesting assistance with their power payment. Yes, I did giggle when I saw that onesie. Not because it was amusing, but more because it validated my lifelong suspicions. I wasn't considered a genuine person by them. With a debit card, I was the family's scapegoat, and now I was expecting my own child. I opened a blank document on my laptop while I sat in bed the night of the baby shower. I began to type a list. Not a list of things to do, not a plan for birth, a cue. I would no longer allow them to cross that line. And please stop making jokes about me. Not another unwelcome guest. No further financial assistance, never. Access to the baby, unless I specifically state otherwise. No manipulation through Rita's back door. Adam turned and said, "What's that?" "Our new family policy," I said, and I slept for the first time in years. Naturally, though, they made things difficult. My mother texted me the morning after the baby was delivered. "Is she present then?" "No name?" "No." "Well done." I just didn't answer. Rita shared a childhood photo of me on Instagram. A few hours later, writing, "I can't wait to meet my new niece wherever she is." Because it's a family art form, passive hostility. During that first week, my parents called, texted, and even sent a card to Adam in the hospital. The front was the only one to say, "Congratulations, Dad." A $20 Starbucks gift card and a sticky note that said, "Perhaps this will help," were inside. "I hope you soon get better employment." "I hope I'm kidding. This isn't about me," Adam murmured, glancing at me. "It's all about dominating you." He was correct. We made the decision to move at that point. They couldn't pop far enough to prevent somebody from unintentionally dropping in on the infant, but not far enough to be dangerous. Just far enough for me to breathe. We kept it a secret. We did not provide them with our updated address. I answered my mother's question about when she could visit the baby. "When I'm ready, I'll let you know." She didn't ask again. 2 days later, Rita texted, "Whoa." Embracing the idea of cutting off contact with your family. I put her on the block list but didn't reply. I created a secret folder called Evidence that week. Within it, in case they ever attempted to paint me as the bad guy, I kept screenshots of the ones that either text readers upload. I needed receipts and documentation. Adam referred to it as my policy for emotional insurance. I referred to it as self-defense. Even still, there was a part of me that silently and foolishly hoped they would change their behavior, apologize, or even be softened by the baby. They didn't. They got more intense. And what took place? One thing became evident after 3 months. They wanted to see more than simply the baby. They want authority. Cutting someone off always seemed to me like slamming a door. Out loud. Dramatic. Final. It's more surgical and quieter in real life, though, as when you sneak out of a burning building and shut the door behind you, knowing that no one inside will be harmed, but knowing that they will only pull you back into the flames. I didn't text a large family group. I did not compose a letter of passion. I simply quit. No more updates, no more texts, and no more cash. I had set up regular transfers to assist with my parents' mortgage, but I discreetly canceled them. That was a monthly loss of $600. For emergency daycare costs, which somehow always fell on her spa days, I stopped Venmo Rita. I took money out of the family's emergency reserve. 2 years ago, I foolishly consented, which essentially meant that the Christine pays for everything. Money was also gone. I didn't elaborate. I made no excuses. Because the moment you begin to describe things in such a way, people will take it and turn it into a point of contention. Naturally, the response was instantaneous. The passive-aggressive text appeared first. As you can see, the mortgage was not approved. I hope all is okay. Interpretation. Where is our money? An ATM reader that is human. Hello, your niece is in dire need of her medication this month. Could you please send your regular? Her niece only existed when money was involved, which is funny. They intensified because I disregarded them. It began with the voicemail my mother left when she phoned. I'm not sure what's wrong with you, but this attitude is unacceptable. And it ends with the statement, maybe you're not mature enough to be a parent? If you think you can punish us with money, because being mature involves paying your emotionally abusive parents to make fun of your life decisions and to disparage your unborn child. The guilt trip parade followed, and we were expecting you to do it. Your dad's blood pressure is elevated. This kind of stress may kill him. I worked hard all my life, Dad. Do I get this gratitude? Rita? Whoa. This is really harsh, but I knew that being a mother would alter you. It would also cost you nothing if Rita allowed Mom and Dad to meet the kid. I about lost it at that point. Therefore, she was correct. Leaving her in their grasp would have been simple. Take some pictures. For a moment, imagine if we were one of those happy families you see in classic films. Then, though, I recalled the onesie, my mother's arrogant grin, and how I used to giggle to keep from crying. What will happen when my daughter is old enough to get the humor, I wondered. What happens if people begin to make fun of her? Well, not once again. Thus, I just responded once. Rita and I. It would cost me more than you can ever imagine to let them get close to her. Walked. I then modified my phone number. Silently. Just for my close friends and family. No big reveal. Just tranquility. I began sleeping through the night for the first time in my life. Not because the infant was asleep. She didn't at all. However, I wasn't anticipating emotional minefields each time my phone rang. However, when individuals like my parents don't get what they want, peace never lasts. Began with the post on Facebook. I hope my daughter likes this once. My mother wrote under a picture of me as a newborn. I can't even hold my granddaughter anymore. Then came the condolence messages from distant family members who hadn't communicated with me since 2007. After that, Rita gave a hazy anecdote about how some individuals punish their family for being athletic and how becoming a parent should make you gentler rather than colder. I remained silent. For the file I had created, I simply saved the post screenshots in a folder called In Case They Escalate. A few weeks later, I received a call from Adam's school, indicating that I would require it sooner than I had anticipated. Since Adam teaches first grade and had sobbed watching Finding Nemo, it seemed absurd that they had gotten an anonymous report suggesting he could be mentally ill and potentially harmful around children. It was taken seriously at the school. They had to, of course. An internal review was conducted. Adam had to meet with HR Principal A. Fortunately, his colleagues fully supported him, and the meeting ended without any issues. However, I was aware of who had called. I didn't have to prove it, but I couldn't. Vindictiveness like that has a hallmark. For years, my family had been signing it. As a party favor, I printed all of their messages, voicemails, old emails, social media postings, and any other piece of emotional manipulation they had ever given me that evening. I also gave a lawyer a call to inquire whether they appear not to file a lawsuit. How can I help? He gave me information on cease and desist orders, restraining orders, and how to keep records of everything. Then she made a statement that I still remember. You don't need to wait for your daughter to be harmed. Now you can keep her safe. So I did. I made touch with all of our relatives. To be honest, I only trusted a select few, and I informed them that my daughter would not communicate with Rita or my parents. Please honor our choice. The majority claimed to understand. Some resisted. But family is everything, one aunt added. I responded to it. Then I'm building a new one, which is fortunate. We went to a new creche across town, changed pediatricians, and had our names taken off of all the registries. My mom could access, deleted old pictures, began anew. I was choosing peace above quiet and approbation for the first time in my life. Up until 3 months later, when a loud, panicked hammering on our front door disturbed the stillness, everything was perfect. Adam leaped. The infant shifted. Then someone outside said, "You and I need to chat, Christine." I froze when I peered out the window. My mother was who? Weeping, unkempt, and standing by her. A clipboard that collector is carrying in the hand of a man wearing a shabby suit. They weren't only begging, they were in a grave situation. I saw they weren't there to bring peace as I stood there in my peaceful house holding my kid. They were here to steal something. I wasn't going to give it up either. Just before anything cracks, there's a certain quietude. With my infant in one arm and my pulse racing, I stood at the top of the stairs while my mother continued to rap on the door. The man with the poor suit and remorse in his eyes next to her clipboard was obviously not a part of the reunion she'd envisioned. Hugs are not given by debt collectors. Adam gave me a glance. "Would you like me to?" I gave a headshake. "No, I've got this." I walked gently to the front door after giving him the baby. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. Through the glass screen, my mother could see my face. His tears became more intense. There's always a flair for drama in loud, theatrical cries. "Just talk to me, please, Christine. We're having problems. We need your assistance. You cannot simply ignore us in this manner." Behind her, uncomfortably, the debt collector moved. Trying not to appear as though he intended to vanish, he held a stack of papers. With my arms crossed, I said loudly enough for them to both hear, "It's not a nice moment. You know you shouldn't be here, I believe. We are family, though," she cried. "Don't treat us like this." And I felt it for the first time in my life. Not remorse. Don't be afraid. Clarity. You weren't harmed by me. Calmly, I said. "Did you?" I shut the blinds after that. From the other side of the door, I could hear her cry, but I didn't recoil. I refrained from crying. "Let's contact the lawyer," I said to Adam, as I returned upstairs and kissed my baby's forehead. I didn't have to speculate about what might happen next. They will increase, I knew. My mother is one of those persons who doesn't reflect. They strike back. And exactly on time, Rita shared a video of herself that evening, her voice shaking with well-choreographed emotion and her face completely made up. After our parents committed one mistake, my sister severed their relationship. She is punishing them with her infant. Their finances are in ruins. Every day they weep. Please get in touch with her if you know her and let her know that she is superior than this. When I saw that, I burst into laughter. Better than what? That's right. Better than establishing limits. Better than turning a blind eye to mistreatment masquerading as custom. I didn't respond. I kept it to myself. Since I was no longer required to defend myself, I didn't attempt. My lawyer wrote an official stop and desist letter the next day, and not just to my mother, but also to my mom, warning that any further attempts to get in touch with me, Adam, or our daughter will be recorded and used as proof. I wasn't playing a bluff. The repercussions weren't either. They made every effort. Burner account emails, voicemails from unknown people. "Your child will resent you for keeping her away from her family," was the message left by an anonymous caller. Well done, Mum. But the portion that, in my opinion, truly clinched the deal. The falsehoods began to unravel. It turns out that after years of performance, someone ultimately forgets their lines. A relative made contact, someone I hadn't spoken to for a long time. "Hey, I saw what Rita posted," he remarked. "However, I also recalled how you were treated as a child. I just wanted to let you know, their story doesn't seem credible to me." Other family members privately messaged me one by one. Some said they were sorry they didn't notice. Some acknowledged that they had always pondered the reason. I appeared quite uptight in front of my family. "I recall your mother telling you that you owed her for not obtaining an abortion." One aunt wrote, "I never forgot that, but I did. I had buried it deep. However, There was evidence. For years, they had been repeating the silent part aloud. So I took the unimaginable action. I was honest. I didn't record a video for the public. A clumsy call-out threat was not what I posted. I just gave a small group of my extended relatives a straightforward message. One joke won't lead me to cut off contact with my parents. Years of financial abuse, conditional love, and emotional manipulation have led me to cut them off. The final straw was the onesie. Voicemails, pictures, and screenshots were attached. Just the facts, no comments. What followed was a wonderful stillness. My parents were unfriended by certain individuals. My mom had written them a note stating that I had gone insane after giving birth and need professional assistance, which one of my relatives shared to me. Now they were attempting to undermine me. Because people began to see the pattern, their final card failed. The desperation, the falsehoods. And I began to recognize my true family. The buddy who came all the way across town to sit on the porch and bring me coffee. "You're doing the right thing," the neighbor said in a handwritten message. The old colleague who sent me a baby blanket, along with a letter that said, "Your child will grow up free." The best gift of all is that 4 months had passed since the onesie. We relocated to 2 different towns. Bigger portion, smaller location. Once more, we switched pediatricians. A fresh chapter, a new creche, and a new phone number. The infant's sleep has improved somewhat. Adam chuckles even more. I grin without looking to see whether anyone is looking. I get depressed sometimes. I lament the version of myself that hoped they would change, not because I miss them. Who thought I would be noticed at last if I offered enough money, time, and forgiveness? He made a great effort. And she's gone now, replaced by a more powerful individual, someone more subdued, someone who doesn't have any proof. To those who would never applaud her victory. The other day, I discovered the onesie tucked away in a drawer that I hadn't opened since our relocation. I looked at it for a while. I then placed it in an evidence-labeled box, closed it with tape, put it in a file, to remind myself not to cling to the hurt. Never again. I'm not sure if my parents will continue to try. Every time I see my daughter's large eyes, her frenzied laughter, and her tiny fingers around mine, I don't care. One thing is certain to me. She will never believe that love has a cost. Her ability to laugh through embarrassment will never develop. She will never have to win the love of those who hate her just for being. Me? I don't let you down. I'm a mom. And I've now understood what it is to defend something you genuinely care about. That's the tale. Not the story I ever thought I'd tell, but the one I had to experience in order to realize what love isn't. I'd be interested in knowing your opinions if you've ever had to make a decision like this or ever considered it. Did I make the correct decision? Was I severe enough or too harsh? Tell me in the comments below. Please click the subscribe button if this story resonated with you, or if you simply want to hear more tales like it.